microphones, and then
I can do
carry
that.
on.
I can mute everyone.
Yeah, okay.
Mute all. And I can't allow you to unmute yourself. So now you're a little bit stuck. But you can put up your hand or you can write things in the chat, right? And then if needed, I could always unmute you and you could speak if things are not clear from the chat. Okay. So we're going to start our second coming together, talking about becoming your own therapist. And the question is, how do we see the good aspects of ourselves? If we see the things that arise in our mind, are they as clouds? Then the good aspects, are they also clouds or are they the blue sky? So I think even the good aspects that we have, if we really check the mind, where they're coming from, that is still a biased mind. So our love and our compassion that we have that for the people that we like, the people that are close to us, our family, our friends. But for those that hurt us, there is no loving compassion, you know, or it's much harder to generate that. There is, yeah. So that means that the loving compassion that we have comes from independence upon benefit that we receive in relationships. It is not a loving compassion that comes due to having applied reasoning. It is not something that comes due to having done practice. So when we start developing qualities that are in accordance with our mind, we first want to eliminate the mind that is biased. The mind that has a preference for certain people and things and has a preference for not having certain things or not being around with certain people. So that means that the love and compassion that arises in our mind is temporarily, is dependent upon causes and conditions. It is, and very much on our emotions, right? And so therefore, definitely, I think they're clouds. But they're very good clouds, they're very pleasant clouds. And what we can try to do is to use these qualities as, wow, I could feel like that for everyone. But in order to get there, I have to apply reasoning. And so we're going to look into how to do that in the last two sessions. And tonight we're going to look into what we did last week. I will give you a little summary of what we did last week. And then we go further into trying to understand, trying to see how our mind works and what the mistakes are that we make that cause us that we have so many problems, you know, or that make that we still can't get what we want, or that the mind is still quite restless and not very peaceful. So the better we understand why that is, then it becomes more easy to apply remedies. Okay. So last week I asked you to think about qualities that you would like to see in a therapist. And then to check the relationship with yourself and to see if you can give these qualities to yourself. And if not, then how do you relate to yourself? Did you do that? Did you spend a little bit of time looking into that? You don't have to tell me about it, but I'm curious to hear if you spend a little bit of time. I see no nodding. Does that mean, oh, we forgot? Maybe due to all the power cuts, you forgot the question. It's important to know, you know, and how we relate to ourselves. We're going to look into that in either the next time or the next session. Because how we relate to ourselves determines how we treat ourselves, how we feel being with ourselves, how we feel being who we are. You know, if we are not happy with ourselves, it's often because we do not treat ourselves very well. And then treating yourself well is a very, it's actually not, it might seem very difficult because we are not used to it. But once you start practicing, they have done scientific research to that. And actually within 2 weeks, you can already improve the way you relate to yourself. And that makes that you start feeling already very different. So maybe you can think about it the coming week again. And then we'll speak about it. So what did we do last week? We spoke about the mind, that it is by nature pure like the sky. And that whatever we think we are, whether that is connected with our beliefs, our reactions, that what we identify with, that what we are happy with, that we are not happy with, that is not all our nature. Our nature is light, is free, is unobstructed. So all the dark parts that we experience with respect to ourselves, in Buddhism we would say they're all wrong consciousnesses, which means they are not in accordance with reality. Right? So that's something to rejoice in. You might not know yet how to remove them, but they're not true. That's not who you really are. So every painful feeling, every judgment that you have about yourself, which is not nice, it's not who you really are. Right? It's very important to think about it and to tell that to yourself. That's not who you really are. Cannot be like that. So we spoke about the purpose of Buddhism, but also of each and every religion. True religion is all about developing our full potential of wisdom and compassion. And we can see that all religions share that we want to develop the good heart, right? How to overcome the selfish mind and having a mind that takes care of others. So somehow they help us to become the best version of ourselves. And we might not yet know what that means, the best version of myself, right? Because our mind is quite limited. The way we see ourselves is quite limited. But if we can listen with an open mind, you know, maybe there are all kinds of possibilities in what we can become that we never ever thought about. So keep the mind open. The mind is that which is clear and knowing. Right? I mentioned that a couple of times. So clear and knowing means there are two aspects. In every moment of mind, there is an experience, something that we feel, and there is an experiencer, the one who knows, who is present, who is witnessing. In each and every moment of mind, there are these two. We can choose on which one we are focused upon. That's just to remember. So we focus for what prevents us from seeing our own true nature, which is our ignorance. Ignorance is like a blindfold, you know, we just cannot see what is. I mean, the Lama Zopa sometimes says we cannot even see what is going to happen in the next moment, right? We can just see what is here right now, but then we cannot even see the true nature of reality. Our ignorance is divided into two aspects. One aspect is a not knowing, which is not a negativity, but it is a blindness. You know, we do not know what is going to happen in the next moment. We do not know what we were in past lives, what we're going to be in next life. We don't know what, you know, many things that already happened in this life, we don't know anymore. That is just a lack of being able to see. And the other ignorance that we have is a distorted knowing. The distorted knowing means that we know things in a way that is not in accordance with reality, which is actually opposite to how things exist in actuality. And so that is a real problem that we have. Because things appear to us in a way that is opposite to how it exists in actuality. And so the main thing that appears to us is the self, is who am I? How do I exist? And in dependence on that self, we feel that the self has certain needs, and the self needs to be protected from certain things. And so in order to do that, I react with attachment to give the self what the self needs, and I react with aversion when I do not want to have something or to be with something. So if attachment and aversion arise in dependence upon a self that we conceive in the opposite way as that it exists in actuality, then we can see that whatever attachment and aversion is going to do is it's not going to be able to bring us what we really want. Can you see that? If you want me to repeat something, you can, let me see what reactions we have. You can maybe, only the thumb and the clapping. Don't know which one to use. You can do the clapping maybe, I'll repeat what I said. So what we believe is that things exist in an objective way, right? As if they have objective existence, as if the things exist the way we see them out there. If we see a car, it appears as if the car, what is car? Car is what is out there. And so out there is an object which is impermanent by nature, which has come about due to many causes and conditions, which is exists out of many, many, many parts, and which has come about independence on the parts, independence on the causes and conditions. That object is out there. When I see that with my eyes, I see all these aspects of the car. And then my mind makes from that an image, a concept of one thing, which is permanent, never changing. No matter what you change in your car, it's still the same car, and which appear to be independent. And that image we project onto that object. And then in the next moment, that image appears back to us as if it is coming from the object. And then we think, that's a car, as if car is coming from the object itself. In actuality, car is coming from my mind. It is the name given by the mind. I have learned from my parents, my teachers, my society, that we call that a car. Right? It was not that there was a car, and the car by nature is, the name of the car by nature is car. The car is what is given by society. We call that a car. True? So what we do is we project that image. And in itself, there is nothing wrong with that we project, because it helps us to organize life. It organizes the world, right? Instead of having all these parts that make up an object, I just focus on that one thing. It's much easier to communicate, to think about. The problem is that we believe that the image in my mind, which is opposite to what is coming from the object itself in terms of qualities, I believe that that image in my mind and that object are the same thing. And sometimes I can even believe that the image in my mind is the real thing. You know, the car that I'm thinking about is a real car. So we mix what is happening in our mind with with the objects that are outside, and we think they are the same thing. But if we look into the qualities that they have, the objects itself are totally different from the conceptual mind making images of these objects. Do you understand what I'm talking about? If I'm anxious for something that is going to happen in the future, for instance, I have to go to an interview, maybe for a new job, and that's a really fantastic job, and I can make a lot of money if I would get a job, and you know. So my mind is anxious, and so I'm going to fantasize how that interview is going to be, who is going to be there. Oh, I know already that person, probably that person is going to be there, maybe somebody else. What questions are going to be asked? How do I going to feel? How do I going to look like? The fantasies, they just go through our mind, and it almost is like we already having the interview. Then when the day comes that we have the interview, the experience of the interview is totally different of whatever we had imagined before. True? The experience of what we are doing and what we are saying and where we are in the moment is very different of how we think. But for us, it's often the same thing. We mix them. We mix our conceptual mind with reality. This is our biggest problem. And I will explain why. You know, we're going to go into that today. So we talked about the happiness. What is the happiness that we experience? Our happiness is the pleasure that we experience independence on being in contact with certain objects or certain persons. Nice people, good food, beautiful colors, nice sounds. You know, this is all what independence on that pleasant feelings arise in the mind. There's nothing wrong with that. But then what the mind does is that the mind says, oh, I want more of that. So attachment arises in the mind. And then we crave for more of these pleasures. The happiness that we know, the happiness that we experience in dependence upon things, upon, you know, what we eat, what we see, what we hear, is very short term. Right? Often the first contact is the happiest feeling. And then when we stay in contact, the feeling becomes less. And then we say, oh, it's time to go. And then we're going to do something new. And then we have again a happy feeling and we stay a while and then the feeling goes down. And then it's time to go. The first bite of our food is the most delicious bite of the food, especially if you have done some fasting. So delicious. And then the next one a little bit less, next one a little bit less, and then you keep eating and you keep eating, and at a certain point you think, now I have to stop, otherwise I'm going to get really pain in my stomach. Right? So what we say is that happiness is temporarily and it is not stable. So what do we do in order to be free of suffering? We have our aversion. When we experience something that we don't like, aversion is there, and we'll find a way that we are separated from the object, from the person, and in that way from the experience. So it seems that aversion, and if aversion becomes stronger, our anger is like a protector from suffering. right? This is what we use at the moment. We use these tools, attachment and aversion, without any, we do not need our rational mind for that. We do not even have to be aware. It is our automatic pilot. If you are at home, at a certain point, you just get up because you wanna, and you put on the kettle. And you think, oh, I'm gonna make some tea. But you might already have put on the kettle before you had the thought, I would like to have some tea. Automatically, we go for what we like and we move away from what we don't like. That is how we function at the moment. And so now I have to show you, become your own therapist, that there is a big problem in that is actually causing us a lot of problems. That mechanism that we believe is making us happy, is giving us freedom from suffering, is actually our biggest problem. So we're going to talk about that today, that you know why it is a problem. And I just want to pause 1 minute if there is a question. Any questions? No. Okay, then I'll just continue. So you can type the question in. Or if there is a question in the Gompa, you know, Paul, maybe you can put up the hand and we turn on the mic. Is there a question? No. Okay, cool. Then we continue. So let's look into what is our suffering. Where do we suffer from? So normally, if we do not get what we want, we suffer, we don't like it. So suffering is not just suffering, you know, intense suffering, but also I don't like it. Because when we don't like something, the mind gets already disturbed, even if it is for a short while. So everything from I don't like it to I'm suffering, I'm going to call all that suffering. So when we don't get what we want, we suffer. Or when we get something that we do not want, we also suffer, right? Something very unpleasant might, you go out just to do a little shop and somebody crashes your car. You get something that you do not want. And then being separated from what you want. So you have something that you're very happy with, that you feel you get a lot of benefit from, and somehow you get separated. We suffer from dissatisfaction. We suffer from loneliness, right? And so these are all unpleasant experiences. And in Buddhism, we call that the suffering of suffering. And I'm sure most of you have heard of that. So it is aversion that helps us to free from them. The suffering of suffering feels like discomfort, unpleasantness. It can also refer to the pain. So the way that our mind is working at a moment, when we experience pain and we want to move away from that, and if we find something pleasurable and we want to have more of that, we know Buddhism can be very cruel, right? So they say, if that is the only thing in your life, you live the similar life as an animal, because even an animal can take care of that. Did you know that one? Probably. You have heard that one before. So if we do not do anything else than just going with the feeling, I follow my feelings, I do what I like, I do not do what I don't like, you know, then that is similar than living the life of an animal. The animal knows how to get away from suffering. The animal knows where to get food, how to take care of their babies, right? But we as human beings, we have a rational mind. We're very intellectual, intelligent beings. And so we can use that intelligence in order to go beyond that living life as an animal. So in order to know how to do that, we're going to look into the 2 other levels of suffering when we think about the 3 types of suffering. And the second type of suffering, and I'm sure that you have heard these teachings before, you know, but sometimes we think, oh yeah, I know. But to really connect with it on the level of your experience and seeing it in your own mind, I think is something different. For that, we might need to hear the teachings again and again and again. So the most core suffering is the suffering of suffering. We're very familiar with that, we know that. Then the second suffering is the suffering of change. And the suffering of change refers to all the pleasant experiences that we have. They are in the nature of suffering because they do not last, they're not stable. And if you look into the nature of these feelings, they are dissatisfactory by nature. Yeah. Even if we have wonderful experiences, and you should check that in your own life, you know, you eat something really tasty, or you are with very nice company, or you see something beautiful, the mind very quickly goes like, but there is something missing. If I would have also this, then it would be really complete, right? That's the mind of attachment. The mind of attachment always shows us what is missing. It is never perfect because what we experience, the pleasure that is there, attachment is straight away there to prolong that experience. And the nature of attachment is that it is dissatisfactory by nature. So we say that's not real happiness. Because whatever happiness that comes from following the pleasurable feelings, it doesn't last. And we say it is not real happiness. Why is it not real happiness? If it were to be real happiness, then the more we would have of it, of whatever brings us happiness, the more happy we should become. So if I think that certain food is extremely delicious and it makes me really happy, you know, then I would prove to you that that is not real happiness by saying, okay, and now I give you 2 kilos of that, and you keep eating and you keep eating. If that makes you really happy, you should get more happy, more happy, more happy the more you eat of it. And we know that that is not true. So if something we think that makes me really happy, then you can think, but how much makes me happy? Right? There is always a turning point that the happy feeling, the pleasure that we experience turns around into suffering. And because that point comes with all the experiences that we have in dependence on the 6 senses, Buddhism says, therefore, whatever we experience, the pleasure that we experience in dependence on the 6 senses, is not real happiness. It is in the nature of suffering, because after some time it will change from feeling happy to feeling suffering. So what is real happiness in Buddhism? And we talk about the total freedom of all the delusions, freedom from attachment and aversion, freedom of our reactions to whatever we experience. We think my reactions bring me happiness, but Buddhism says no. The feelings that arise, they can be very pleasurable and you can enjoy them. But what you actually do, you kill them by following them. You create suffering for yourself with your attachment. You create more suffering with yourself, even with your aversion, trying to avoid suffering. You only create more suffering. So what is real happiness? The less delusions you have, the less you suffer from problems, the less you suffer from the problems that the delusions create. And total freedom from delusions is total happiness, perfect happiness. The more you free yourself from delusions, the happier you become. And that can only increase, 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 increase. With that happiness, there is no turning point, that at a certain point you have so little delusions left and then suddenly there is suffering. No, there is only more happiness, more happiness, more happiness. So therefore, that is real happiness. It's a different quality. So how do we get there? In order to know that, we have to think about another level of suffering. What is called in Buddhism the suffering of conditioned existence. And so the suffering of conditioned existence is the suffering of having the five aggregates, of having a body and a mind that has been created by karma and delusions. Because our body is created by karma and delusions, the body is under the influence of karma and delusions. The body is controlled by karma and delusions. And at the same time, the body is all the time producing karma and delusions. And so whatever we do, whatever we think, comes about due to karma and delusions. And due to that, we create more causes for more karma and delusions in the future. And so that is called samsara. We are under the influence of karma and delusions. We constantly produce karma and delusions. You know, like that little rat going around in the wheel. And there is no way that we can stop that, because that is our automatic pilot. And that is the only way that we have to find happiness, which is the pleasure that we have, and to be free of suffering. We have to keep going, we have to keep going. We can't get out, right? This is samsara, conditioned existence. In order to get out, we have to see that that what is driving us is not in accordance with reality. And so the one that is driving that is that self-grasping mind. The mind that holds the self to exist as a unitary, permanent, independent entity, as an autonomous, objective thing. While in actuality, the self doesn't exist like that at all. But as long as we believe that that self is there, and that that self, that I have to take care of that self, and so I have to make sure that I have the food, and I have a job, and I have the money, and I have a house, and you know, I have to keep doing in order to sustain my body and my mind. Right? And we know that we are living, especially, maybe we got a little break of that, right, with the coronavirus. But before the virus, I don't know, maybe in Bunbury you're a little bit less into doing, but people had to work in order to keep up with everything. Doing. In order to be somebody, in order to have what you need to have, in order to be part of society. Remember how that was? You know, that's samsara. And we have a lot of beliefs around that doing, you know, and I think that is the beauty of the coronavirus, that we got a break and that we can see, well, maybe that is not all that needed. Because in itself, that is an extremely unhealthy mind. It is the mind that is causing physical sickness, mental sickness, and it is not even bringing you real happiness. And let me have a look what else I want to say. So if we talk about really becoming free from suffering and really developing happiness, what we need to do is that we need to find a way that we become free from samsara, that we become free from conditioned existence. How do we do that? We need to eliminate the root cause of conditioned existence, which is the grasping at the self. And in order to do that, we need to realize the emptiness of that self that we are grasping at, that self doesn't exist the way it appears to us. And when we realize that, that attachment that arises in order to give us pleasure, no need anymore for that. And the aversion to protect ourselves, no need anymore, because we have seen that that self that we believed in doesn't exist like that. So let's go back to the mind of attachment and aversion. If there are no questions, you type the questions in, right? You let me know if there is something. I can stop at any time. So when we experience pleasure or displeasure, we react with attachment or aversion. And in dependence on that, we might engage in a verbal action or a physical action. Right? But what we also do is we engage in a mental action. So we experience something, somebody says something to us that hurts. We have that experience. And then on dependence on that, we might say something back, which if you say it too quickly, it's not going to be a positive thing. You might do something back, which if you do it in dependence on your aversion, it's not going to be a nice thing that you're doing back. And if you think, oh, you know, you hold yourself, you're not saying anything, you're not doing anything, but mentally, you do a lot. Why did he say that to me? I didn't do anything wrong. I do not deserve that. And then the mind goes around and around and around, creating, some people say, about 90% of the suffering that we experience. 10% is the moment that the experience started. And then with our mind, we actually prolong the experience of suffering. 90%. We make ourselves sick by doing that. Do you recognize that? Is that just me? I think I have got a little bit better over the years, but I remember even, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, if somebody would say something to me that was hurtful, my mind could go on for days. Why did you say that to me? I just can't get it. Why did that? And I keep going around and around and around. And then I want to eliminate that feeling, but I don't know how to do that. So it looks like if I just keep thinking about it, then somehow I will find a way that the suffering that I experience, that is going to go. But I was not really successful in that. Why only 90% and not 100% do we suffer from our own mental Well, you first have that somebody says something to you which hurts, right? That is not coming from the delusions in the moment. That is coming from, you know, you could say that is karma. That is an experience that you have. And yes, of course, the reason why it hurts so deeply has to do something with our mind and with our beliefs and with our, you know, but you cannot change that right there in the moment. If somebody hits your car, you cannot stop the suffering that is coming from that physical experience. So that they say 10%. I don't think it's fair to say 100%. But I do think, you know, we add a lot to our suffering, which is not needed if we have more control over our mind. But in order to find that control, we really have to start relating in a different way with ourselves. And we have to look in different ways at what is happening to us and why things are happening to us. And that these are quite some skills to learn, you know, that is not something that we can do overnight. But we can learn that day by day, become better in reacting less to unpleasant things that happen to us. So let's look at what is really driving us, you know, what is motivating us. And in order to do that, I'm going to put up a little screen so that you can read with me. And I'm sure you have heard of this, the 8 worldly concerns. Have you? Let me make that a little bit smaller so you can see the whole thing. Yeah, they are. The 8 worldly concerns. If we look into what are attachments, what keeps our attachment busy, it is the column at the left side, the kind of orange color. If we see what keeps our aversion busy, it is the right color, the blue color. So we're going to go through that, and you check with your own experience if you recognize that. Yeah. So the first thing that what keeps attachment busy is craving for material things or craving for comfort. I don't know, I'm always, you know, I think this happens automatically. As soon as we feel a little bit of discomfort somewhere, we immediately react and try to adjust so that we are free from the discomfort and have more comfort. You know, I feel, oh, I'm a little chilly. Okay, I put my blanket around, and then I feel more comfortable, less discomfort. True. If we, you know, we acquire quite some material things, and when we do that, that comes with a feeling of pleasure. You know, you go to the shop, whatever you buy, there's kind of a happy feeling coming that you can buy all that. And if you have no money, you suffer because you cannot get out and get what you want, get what you need. Right? So we crave for acquiring material things, we crave for comfort, and we crave to be free from not being able to acquire things or discomfort. We crave for pleasures of the 6 senses. You know, no matter what you do, what you eat, what you wear, what you see, what you hear, what you want is you want to have good feelings. True? I want to feel good. Today I like this, so I'll take that. But tomorrow I like something else, so I take something else. We always go for what we like. We try to stay away from what we do not like, what causes displeasure to arise in the mind. If we have clothes that are not comfortable, we don't say, oh, I'll wear that today. Because the whole day you will feel like, oh, this is itching and it's a little bit hard and I don't like it. You know what? You take it out. Right? You don't go and be in a restaurant and you order that what you actually don't like. Nobody does that. We crave for being free from what we don't like. Right? This is how everybody works, right? We do not have to beat ourselves up, or this is just to understand this is what we do the whole day, all the time. This is what concerns us during the day. So we also we have craving for hearing sweet and ego-pleasing sounds or words, you know. So we like somebody to tell us how wonderful we are, how much they love us, how they appreciate us, you know, gives us a good feeling. And we do not like to hear the opposite. You know, if somebody says, well, you're a bitch, we are shocked, you know, and we do not want to be with that person because that's not what we want to hear. So we have aversion for hearing ugly, displeasing sounds. And then we have craving for personal praise and admiration, which refers to more how people see us and how they talk about us behind our back. You know, we like to be in esteem of people, like somehow that they appreciate us in the sense of that they see us in a certain way. We do not like it when people talk bad about us behind the back, or when they start blaming us, whether we have done something or not, doesn't matter. We also don't like to be criticized, whether we have done something or not, doesn't matter. We just do not like to be not, you know, kind of not rejected, but that our personality gets criticized. That's how people see us. We don't like that. So these are the 8 worldly concerns. And if you look into how we live life, then we try to stay in the left column, in the orange column, you know, have our experiences in that column. And we try experiences of the left column, and not too much happens on the right column. We feel very good about ourselves. And we feel that we are successful and life is quite good, right? And if we have too much from the right column, then we feel not so happy with ourselves. We feel that we're failures. We feel that we don't really know how to be happy. We might get depressed. So we work really hard to just stay in the left column, in the orange column. We think that's what I have to do to have a good life. And Buddhism says the fact that you work so hard to just get the things on the right side and stay away from the things on the left side, that is what makes you so unhappy or tense, or causes dissatisfaction, causes a lack of contentment, causes the restlessness, whatever you are suffering from. You know, I could say whatever you are suffering from is coming from that. And so you need to apply to your own mind. if what I'm suffering from is coming from that, where do I do that? What am I craving for, and where do I want to stay away from? So the more we crave for the left side, the more we will suffer when we get something from the right side. True? If we have strong aversion for one of the things from the right side, that means that we have strong craving for something at the other side. And both are a problem. Both the craving and the aversion are a problem. We think if I have one side and not the other side, I'm fine. Buddhism says, what if you have strong grasping at left or right side, doesn't matter, at any of them, that makes the problem. Why? Because both sides are in the nature of suffering. And so if you crave very strong for one side, you are creating the causes of suffering right there. So Buddhism would say, if you are fine with getting things from the left column, from the right column, from the blue column, if you are fine, if you do not have much money, if when you experience discomfort, when you get something that you do not like, when people are speaking harshly to you, it doesn't really move your mind, then problems are gone. Because that means that you also do not have a lot of attachment to having comfort, to having the pleasures of the senses, to hear beautiful words spoken to you. Right? If you can deal when you get the opposite, craving for having the things in the orange column is not so big. Then mine is more easy. So if we can manage the whole picture, all the experiences that life brings us, and we do not have a particular preference, because life sometimes brings good experiences, sometimes brings negative experiences. But if we know what to do with each one of them, so that it becomes a cause for growth, so that we use it as an opportunity to become a better version of ourselves, then whatever experience we have, we can use for that. Then attachment and aversion becomes less dominant in the mind. And all the problems that arise in dependence upon, especially attachment, and therefore also aversion, but especially attachment, these problems are not there like that. They become much less. Can you see that? Is I think one of the biggest secrets in life, working through your unpleasant feelings, not suppressing them, not denying them, not trying to move away from them, but saying, okay, thank you very much. It hurts, but I'm going to sit with that. And then allowing that displeasure to move through your body without you going into the aversion. And then when you have experienced that displeasure, what happens is I think what you're going to see is your wisdom mind starts to surface, your compassionate mind starts to surface. And I think most growth comes from there, if we know how to do that. Not only do we connect with wisdom and compassion, but also our attachment becomes so much less. Yeah. And when there's less attachment in the mind is less clouded, the mind is more clear. The mind is less emotional and less emotional. Some people then say, oh, then you're just rational, you know. But less emotional doesn't mean you are rational. You have less negative emotions. But when you have less negative emotions, you can have actually a lot of positive emotions. So if we are able to embrace the unpleasant, and if we can let go of our attachment when we experience the pleasure, the pleasant, yeah, that is a really good way of making your mind healthy, of being your own therapist. So sometimes people feel, well, when I'm going to have less attachment, you know, I feel less alive. I need my attachment to feel alive. Or I need my attachment in order to make sure that I get what I need. Without attachment, I won't be able to get what I need. You know? But I do not think that we need our attachment in order to get what we need. We know what we need. Yes, attachment is often involved. And I even think, you know, especially when we, at the beginning of doing a practice, and I still feel myself like a beginner, I never have that now. I forgot what I need. You know? Oh, my attachment is, I don't know anymore what I need. Our attachment is so embedded in us. We do not have to worry that we will not know anymore what we need. But if we start to lessen at our attachment, what does happen is that we will have less anxiety. We will have less, you know, there's excitement in the mind that can disturb the mind a lot. We have things not happen the way we want them. We have less reaction to that. The reaction lasts long than at the moment. You know? So the disturbances become less. It's not that way. It's not that as long as you have realized emptiness directly, you do have to be afraid that you're going to lose your attachment. You won't. You also will not lose your protective aversion or anger, you know, that sometimes we need if we are really in danger. Even if you lessen your aversion, you're going to not lose that one. That one actually becomes more clean, you know. What we are losing is what we are doing too much. We are losing the craziness that we do not need in order to live life. So what we have done, I think, a little bit in life is that we do not like feel the unpleasant, right? So when unpleasant things rise, we have a tendency to suppress that, or to push it away, or to not experience that. Maybe we deny it, maybe, but it is sitting somewhere in our system. And so when we do that, then what we numb ourselves. And when we numb ourselves, then in order to feel ourselves, we need stronger stimuli. So then we need stronger taste, we need stronger something, stronger to feel that you are alive. So when we start working with our mind in terms of lessening the delusions, what we're going to do is we're going to unwind the whole system. And sometimes you might have periods that you feel like, oh, I don't feel myself so much, you know, everything looks so plain and so, but you stay with that. It is like after sometimes something changes and you start seeing a whole different, it's like a different layer of reality starts to open up again. And so I think when we start working with our delusions, lessening our attachment, lessening our aversion, it is like peeling an onion, or it is like a spiral that you undo. You, instead of going up in samsara, you know, going through the wheel like the rat, you're going to undo, undo, undo. And so sometimes it might feel, oh, but then I feel like I'm not alive. It all becomes a bit boring. Yeah, but keep going, because after that, you're going to see very different colors of life. You know? And you're going to appreciate more subtle, how to say, you see the subtleties much better. We have numbed the whole system with that, not dealing with the unpleasant and indulging in the present. I'll go back to that. You don't know if you can still see me at the side. I'll stop the sharing. If you like to have this, can you hear me okay again? 5:30. Directly sound. Is there not such a good connection? Or is it better now? Good. Okay. So we have to, you know, if you see samsara as a spiral where you become more tight, more tight, more tight, more tight, and we're going to undo that, undo that, undo that. And so that when you undo that, I have different kinds of experiences. Sometimes like, oh, but I don't feel so much alive anymore. Or sometimes you feel, it's like, if you're used to drinking coffee, right? Coffee gives you this boost and you feel, oh yeah, now I wake up, now I feel good. Yeah. Then you stop drinking coffee. And then you in the morning, you miss that boost and it is like, oh, you can't really wake up, you can't really feel, you can't really. But if you really stop with the coffee and you don't go back to that, at a certain point, that feeling of not having the coffee starts to disappear. And what you're going to get back for that is that there is going to be a feeling of being more alive. And you don't need the coffee to feel that. Right? Every addiction that we have is giving us the feeling that we are alive. But actually it is covering up our connection with life. It gives us the illusion of being alive. It gives us this boost of yes, but it is actually just triggering your attachment. Letting go of addictions. We first, you know, you have this period where you detox, which is very unpleasant to feel. And it's like, I actually do not want to go there. But if you're able to move through that, you're going to get to a place where you feel, wow, you know, now I feel so much more alive. And not only that, you're also free of the attachment for that. You have found freedom from attachment for one certain thing in this life. That freedom you will feel as a positive aspect in your mind. So freedom from attachment, when we talk about that, lessening the attachment, freedom from the delusions feels like that. You're not controlled by a substance anymore. You're not controlled by needing to have something. You're free. free of that. I need. Free. Then you can choose. You know, sometimes you want to have a coffee, sometimes not. Okay. So I think in the next 2 weeks, we can talk more about the self-grasping mind and how to address that, and the self-cherishing mind. And we will start next time with working with embracing the unpleasant and letting go of the pleasant, how we do that. Yeah. So first we look into the delusions and how we how we can apply certain techniques so that less delusions arise in the mind automatically. And then we look a little bit deeper into the self-grasping mind and the self-cherishing mind and how we can address that. All right. Are there any questions? Would you like me to send the 8 worldly concerns to Glenys and she can forward that to you so that you can see that when you're at home? Yes? Okay. So I will do that. A very good book if you are interested in the 8 worldly concerns. And that is really our biggest problem in samsara, you know, because that is what makes that we keep creating more samsara. Is the book from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, which is called Practicing Dharma. It is a book where he only talks about the 8 worldly concerns, and every time I read it, I think, oh my gosh, I'm so still under the influence of the 8 worldly concerns. It is so difficult to not follow that. But very helpful to read about it, because when you read it, you know that that is exactly what we need to be doing in order to be free from suffering and to find stable happiness. I will mention that in the email to Glenys, and then she can forward you the title and you can look it up. Okay. So I see no questions. Does that mean that there are no questions? If you find it difficult to ask questions here, you know, I would also be happy if during the week you want to send them to Glenys and she forwards them to me. I'm fine with that. Would that be helpful? Or if you say, but actually there are certain problems in life and you're not talking about that, I want you to talk about that. How do I deal with that? I'm happy to read your questions and see if we can integrate that in the teachings. Okay. I see slightly nods. You have to help me, guys. All right. So we can do a 20-25 minute meditation to finish this session off. And we can, what I would like to do is use this meditation to look into what attachment does to the mind and what aversion does to the mind, and how we can be with that without following that. All right. Everyone ready? So make sure that you sit comfortable. And give yourself a couple of minutes time to relax, you know. We hear many, many, many words, and now you let them all slide off. You don't have to hold on to any of the things that I have said. Your wisdom mind has heard it. Your wisdom mind will come back to that later. But for now, you're allowed to just be present in your body, feeling the sensations. And when the mind is with the body, the mind is in the present moment. Because the body is always in the present moment. And have an open mind during the meditation. Which means that we accept whatever arises and have no expectations of what might come. We are just present. If we can accept whatever arises, there is no aversion in the mind. And if we have no expectations of what might come, there is no attachment in the mind. When our mind is in the present moment, we can see the impermanent nature of things. We can see feelings arising in the mind and dissolving back into the mind. We can observe our mind reacting to the feelings. And if we don't follow this reaction, or if we don't identify with that reaction, we can see that a reaction naturally dissolves back into the mind. Being mindful gives us the opportunity to see the transient nature of everything. Everything that arises naturally dissolves again. Meditating on the impermanent nature of things can help us to really understand impermanence through experience. And that will affect the mind in a deep way. It will affect how we perceive and engage with ourselves and the world. When we see the impermanent nature of things, naturally there is no clinging to pleasant experiences and no aversion to unpleasant experiences. Because we realize there is nothing to hold on to. Everything passes away by itself. Feeling arises in every moment of mind. When pleasurable feelings arise in the mind, we react with attachment. That is our attempt to re-experience the pleasant feeling. We think that we need to have attachment in order to experience pleasure. So when we hear about giving up desire, giving up attachment, we hear, I have to give up pleasure. But that's not true. When we give up attachment, we experience more pleasure, or we experience the pleasure more full. The nature of attachment is that it cannot give you satisfaction. When we follow attachment, there is always something missing, or we want more, or something different. For instance, when we sit, we want to stand up. When we stand up, we want to walk. There is never contentment. This is suffering. Pleasant feelings arise in dependence on a concept, an idea, or independence on the body. When a pleasant feeling arises, instead of following it, try to step back and give it some space. We do this by being mindful or by being in the present moment. Then you will not be carried away by the feeling. You stop clinging to it. When we practice contentment, we accept what is or what we have. When we practice contentment, there is no need for attachment to arise. And without attachment, there is no dissatisfaction. This is where peace starts. When unpleasant feelings arise, we react with aversion. This is our attempt not to experience the unpleasant feeling. We deny or ignore or suppress unpleasant feelings. Or we distract ourselves and indulge in pleasant activities, thinking that we are just trying to relax. By rejecting the unpleasant feelings, they only become stronger. When we practice mindfulness, instead of trying to escape unpleasant feelings, we try to look. Mindfulness helps us to understand the nature of things. It helps us to see the impermanent nature of things. Then when things happen, we know to let go. We don't get disturbed when we lose something or when things change. When we experience loss or harm, the mind is not disturbed. That is a relaxation that comes from practicing mindfulness. The moment we realize what suffering is, peace begins. Peace lays within the knowledge. As soon as we understand, peace comes. As soon as we understand that we are afraid or worried, we can accept it. And when we can accept it, it doesn't become bigger. So when you find yourself this week in a situation where the mind is upset and you don't know what's going on, try to bring your awareness to your mind and ask yourself, what's going on? How are you feeling? And the moment you realize what's going on, suffering doesn't become bigger. You understand. Oh, now I understand. I'm just worried, or I'm afraid, or I'm anxious. The moment you see that, that suffering doesn't become bigger, and somehow you can move forward. And then we can conclude a meditation session by dedicating all the positive energy that we have created by listening and reflecting and doing this meditation to the happiness and well-being of all sentient beings. Thank you very much for being here. I'll send the little document to Glennis, and I also will upload the video and will send a link if you want to review the session or if you want to just do the meditation, so that you can just go to YouTube and do it again. These are things that if we can keep hearing, keep practicing, you know, every time we see something different in our own mind, every time we understand on a different level, just if you're interested. And the next time, the last times, we're going to talk about how can we address the problems that we now have seen. What is causing the problems? We have seen that. So now what can we do in order to do things differently? Okay. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if anything needs to be said